Alright guys, we're in the RX-8 R3. So in this video, I'm going to tell you 4 things you need to know about the R3 and why you should buy one. Because this is my car, I've had it for a while now, and it's been ace. So let's get into it. Okay, my first point is what drew me to the RX-8 in the first place. And that's the fact that this car drives beautifully. Especially for an old car as well. I mean, the RX-8 came out in 2003. This is an 09 car, it's an R3, which had a few upgrades, but yeah, the car is just wonderful to drive. So what makes it so good? Well, firstly, you got the rotary engine. Revs out to 9,000, creamy smooth, and it's really light as well. And it's really compact, so they've been able to set it right far back in the chassis. And that helps in all sorts of areas, one of which is the steering, because with a lack of weight over the front axle, there's actually not too much assistance in the wheel. And that means you get lovely little messages of feedback. Okay, it's an e-pass system, so in the wet, yeah, it's a little bit flighty and you don't really know where you are with the front tyres. But other than that, yeah, you've just got a nice sense of the road surface, and in the dry at least, you've got a really good connection with the front end. And then there's the ride quality, which is great. I mean, for the type of car it is, this R3 car has Bilstein dampers. They're 20% stiffer than standard, and it's on 19-inch wheels, but you'd think it would fall apart compared to the standard car on a bumpy road, but actually the opposite is true, because the standard car, the structure wasn't all that stiff and it wasn't very well damped. There was plenty of vertical movement. It tended to crash into small imperfections on the road. And the R3 goes a long way to rectifying those issues. So for a start, the body control is much better. It's much more tied down, and there's much less pitch in the car when you're pushing, which just makes it feel more precise. And also the shell is stiffer. There's been some more welding, and the front crossmember is filled with foam, which gives a bit of extra stiffness, which is really appreciated. Because when you fire this thing at a bumpy road, you really feel a sense of strength in the car that you don't usually feel in an RX-8, which is really welcome. It's really good. They tuned it really nicely for UK roads. Yeah, still the best riding RX-8 I've ever driven is the PZ car, which is tuned by ProDrive, has a similar setup to this in terms of suspension, but it's on 18-inch super light Oz wheels, and that really helps with the ride. It means that the wheel control is just much better, and there's less coarseness from the profile of the tyre, really. Yeah, and then we get onto the chassis balance, and this car is just a yob. You just grab it by the scruff, and it's friendly, it's predictable, relatively long wheelbase, and because it's not got so much torque, 150 pounds-foot, you can just plant the power, and as soon as you get into that sweet spot above 7,000 RPM, the rear will break loose, and you've got to be on your game really, because in the wet at least, there's not that much feedback from the chassis, but it will slide once you've got it set onto an angle. You're not waiting for turbos to spool up, and you're not waiting for a mushy throttle response. You feel like whatever you do with your right foot has a direct effect on the attitude of the car, which is lovely. I mean, that's what we want to see, isn't it? That's what we want a Japanese rear-wheel drive car to do. And an RX-8, well, you can just chuck it sideways whenever you want. It's brilliant.
If you're enjoying watching a total stranger talk about his cheap Japanese car, please hit the like button and subscribe for more reviews, track tests and hooliganry.
Right, and the second reason why you should buy an RX-8 is because the amount of car that you get for the money is just absurd. So we've already described how good it is to drive, how engaging it is, how much fun it is to sling around on a mountain road, but other than that, for about 4 or 5 grand for a good R3, you get these lovely styling tweaks that bring it bang up to date. I mean, this car still looks fresh today, and it's 10 years old. You've got the side skirts, you've got the new front bumper, the new lights, the new wheels as well, which look fabulous. And yeah, when you look at this car and you think, well, I personally paid 2.5 grand for this thing, it's an absolute steal, isn't it? And then you sit inside and you find some more fruits for your money. First of all, you sit in a Recaro seat, which is just wonderful. This is one of the best seats I've tried in a road car. The support is brilliant, the lumbar support is great. I'm sat nice and low, and on track you really appreciate that. But other than that, yeah, we've got red stitching everywhere. It feels well built. It does feel very Japanese, actually, in the way that some plastics are really scratchy and glossy, and it's just been cobbled together by some mad Japanese guy. But at least he's installed a Bose sound system, which is more than welcome, as is a 6 CD changer, auxiliary connectivity, Bluetooth connectivity as well. And in a car that, well, you can pick up a normal RX-8 with all those things for £1,000, if it's a good one, that is, which you've got to be careful with. But yeah, the amount of car is brilliant. I've got seats back there, suicide doors, which is just mad. And yeah, the amount of equipment just makes this an amazing proposition at the money. And this is a car that revs to 9,000 RPM with a brilliant chassis that's engaging, that's refined, as you can hear. As well, we've got xenon lights, which are automatic wipers. The RX-8's got it all, the R3 at least. So that's brilliant. Okay, and the third reason is that when you're not being a hooligan and a yob and chucking this sideways everywhere and right up in the revs and driving it like it's designed for, and you just want to cruise around, you want to relax, you want to slow down, put it in sixth and just cruise. It's wonderful for that as well, because it's refined, there's not much NVH coming into the cabin. It's well isolated. Okay, it's not a Rolls-Royce Phantom, but it is very refined for the type of car it is and for the age of the car as well. And because this engine is so smooth, you just drop it in sixth. And we're doing about 55 miles an hour right now, 2,500 RPM, and it's barely noticeable. You can't even hear the thing. So that's nice as well. It's really not tiring on a long journey, whereas other sports cars can be boomy, uncomfortable, and the ride can be unsettling, a lot of noise and vibration into the cabin. This really doesn't have any of that. It feels really, really usable. And all these factors, the practicality, the refinement, the ease of use, they help make this such a great proposition for an everyday track car. That's exactly what I use this car for. It's a car that when my Alfa Giulia is not on the road, or it's raining outside and it'll turn to dust if it sees any moisture, I'll take this, or I'll take this to the circuit, because it's practical. I can fit my friends in the back, I can fit my helmet and all my gear in the boot as well, and you'll just jump out of the car fresh as a daisy and ready to go on track and really exploit the chassis and the motor. So yeah, as a track day proposition, if you can find a good one, it is brilliant. I'd thoroughly recommend an RX-8. Okay, and the fourth thing you need to know, and it's quite obvious if you know anything about the RX-8 and the rotary engine, is that running costs really aren't this car's forte. Okay, you can pick a car up for about 1,200 quid, and it might have good compression, which you really must check, by the way, because that's the deal breaker with one of these. If it's got a good engine, then it's brilliant. If it hasn't, then you'll be in a world of trouble. Yeah, although they're cheap to buy, the running costs are extortionate because of the emissions of this rotary engine. It costs 500 quid a year to tax. It's a bit painful to say that, but that's the truth. And then there's the fuel efficiency, which really isn't that great with one of these. I mean, on a really good run, if you drive like a saint, you'll get about 19 mpg, which is appalling, really. And when you think that a McLaren 720S with a 4-litre twin-turbo V8 and 720 horsepower will get 5 mpg more than this weedy little RX-8. I mean, that is ridiculous, isn't it? But the car's cheap to buy anyway, so you do sort of get a bit of payback in that respect. And another thing, this rotary engine, by design, it uses oil. And this car has an extra oil injector, being the R3 car, which does help with reliability, but you really need to keep on top of the oil level of this, because yeah, if it runs low, you can really risk wearing out the rotor tips, and yeah, then there'll be a rebuild coming your way for about 2.5 grand. And when you think of the value of the car itself, yeah, you really want to avoid that. So check the oil, make sure it's always topped up, go through the usual procedures of owning a rotary, like never just shutting it off from cold, and yeah, you'll be fine. Okay, so that's it. That's why you should buy an RX-8. And I hope I've given you reason enough to go out and buy one yourself. But please don't blame me if it goes wrong, which it may well do. Yeah, overall, the RX-8 is just a lovely driver's car. It's usable, it's practical, it's got its pitfalls, obviously, but what car doesn't? And please like the video if you enjoyed it. subscribe as well. Got some great videos coming up, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.